Hi, everyone. My name is 𝗦𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀. I'm the Vice President for Strategic Ecosystems at Informatica. And today, Ajay Gollapalli, who is my Chief Architect, Director for Ecosystem Solution Architecture here at Informatica, and we both are going to come and talk to you about how we can empower the enterprise with trusted GenAI-ready data. This is a very interesting topic. It is very, very applicable for today's things that are going on today. But over the next 15 to 20 minutes, you're going to hear more about how we as Informatica look at GenAI applications, especially through enterprise lenses, and how we are helping customers today to get to the right business outcomes. So with that, let me start with it. Quick disclaimer. Here is a standard disclaimer. You guys can read through it as we get into the presentation. As we start with this topic, first I wanted to quickly call out as just looking at where next-gen analytics and generative AI journey has been. This is a nice word cloud which actually talks about everything around what people have been talking about analytics, what people have been talking about Gen AI. But one of the foundational items for all these stuff is on data and data management. We at Informatica, this is our bread and butter. We live, breathe data management. We have been working on this space with respect to analytics, data warehousing for quite some time. And this is a nice stepping stone for us to now address a lot of these generative AI related applications, workloads, and business outcomes, what we are seeing. And this gives us an idea into what sort of challenges, what sort of things, mental models that people need to be thinking of as they are going through their Gen AI journey. So just talking about Informatica in the context of Microsoft, I would love to call out as, instead of talking about who Informatica is, why Informatica, all these stuff, I wanted to quickly talk about as what is our value proposition across by looking at what sort of critical data challenges that we solve for Microsoft Analytics and AI customers. If you look at analytics and AI, there's a lot of innovations happening. There's a lot of information you're hearing about it, but at the end of the day, everything is dependent on data. And when we look at data, where Informatica plays is all about discovery of the data within the organization, population of the data at the right locations, particularly within Azure, but not just discovery and population, but also looking at it from a quality standpoint, cleansing the data, democratizing, governing the data across the enterprise, mastering of the data. And our goal is always about solving critical data challenges that helps with customers' data, AI, and analytics initiatives. As I was talking more about the analytics side of things, what is our point of view? That is Informatica's point of view when we look at enterprise-grade Gen AI apps is we look at it through the lens of data, data readiness, enterprise context, metadata intelligence like that. So when we look at enterprise-grade Gen AI apps, we want to look at it from how to make these AI systems such that there is that we create a foundational success. And the basis for that comes through the AI systems being grounded so that the models which you're using do not hallucinate, or that the AI systems have a context so that it has a context of the enterprise, the domain-specific data, your business glossaries, and things like that. The data that is using in your AI system is of high quality. People always talk about, hey, quality of the data determines the AI responses, but how do you actually implement within the enterprise? It is not just about identifying what are the quality issues, but do you have the ability to go and cleanse the data for the different AI apps? And it all depends on, can you have these things easy to develop and also deploy so that you reach your business outcomes faster? Because one of the promise of Gen AI is about the ease of deployment, the ease of development. But foundationally, how do we look at data management through the lens of easy to develop and deploy? And finally, even as you develop all these stuff, security and governance is paramount so that across the system, all the way across the data journey to the AI journey, that the systems are governed, the systems are secure, and it is transparent so that everybody knows that the right access is there and the right responses are coming from your Gen AI systems. So Earlier, I talked about, hey, where we are looking at it, what is the basis of our point of view when it comes to Gen AI and analytics. But this is also built on the foundation of a partnership between Informatica and Microsoft. This partnership is built on the success of our customers and the success of our innovation. And this is primarily rewarded through what we have done by being a design partner for Microsoft Fabric. We have been early adopters of Azure OpenAI. And our point of view has always been how we can bring data management for Gen AI through the enterprise context. And the innovation, what we talked about, everything is dependent on our platform. And our platform is an end-to-end cloud-native SaaS-based data management solution that runs all the way from discovery, ingestion, to governance, to master data management. So now jumping into, when we talk about enterprise-grade Gen AI applications, the biggest reward what Microsoft has given to many of the businesses is through OpenAI, through Azure OpenAI. So RAG is what, so when you may be hearing a lot about RAG. RAG is the retrieval augmented generation, and it is a powerful technique that integrates a lot of the external information into the large language model that you choose so that your results can be more accurate, it is fact-based, and you have trust on the responses. So Azure OpenAI has made building RAG simple in an enterprise context. And this is one of the architectures or the architectures which you will be seeing mostly when you start to engage in starting to develop these RAG applications. As much as the simplicity is part of that, there is still a lot of questions that need to be answered. So as you are trying to build for enterprise-grade RAG use cases, our point of view, when we talk to customers, and this is something we learn from our customers, is also like there are certain important questions to ask, and those questions focus on the data and the data management layer of building this RAG application. So one of the things we always ask when we talk to customers as they're building the RAGs is, hey, have you thought about what sort of appropriate data do you have for this use case? Is this data retrieved is of high quality and is it accurate? How are you managing your sensitive data, especially with respect to compliance like GDPR, HIPAA, like that? Is the data coming from a trusted data source? So as we double click into all these different questions, you will touch upon some of the important areas of data management around data readiness, data quality, governance, security, relevancy, and integration. So at Informatica, we have been deeply thinking about to go and enable and ensure that your Gen AI applications are providing the right responses and you are getting the right business outcomes. Let us go and look and double click into how to answer some of these deep questions when it comes to data and data management. So when we look at Informatica's data management for enterprise-grade generative AI, we look at data readiness and metadata readiness. Those are the two major pillars where we tend to look at it. So the first thing is around how Informatica's data integration pipelines are enabling Azure OpenAI. And the context behind that is it's all about preparing for enterprise data readiness. Our approach is highly focused on how you can build like a no-code, low-code data ingestion pipeline for these vector databases. These are the vector databases that get supported by Azure AI Studio. And we also look at how we can bring in data from the vast variety of sources in the enterprise. Today, we have 300 plus enterprise-grade connectivity, high-scale, high-performance connectors. But this helps to bring data all the way from whether it is from Microsoft Fabric or SAP or any of or Salesforce or any other enterprise-grade sources into the vector databases. In addition, we also look at Informatica's master data management provides a key data source for many of the Gen AI apps. The goal behind building these integrated data integration pipelines with Azure OpenAI is to bring that low-code, no-code sort of an ingestion pipeline that is easy to develop and gives access to the right data for your AI application. The other important thing to think about when it comes to data readiness is also around, are we able to prepare the enterprise metadata? So the metadata intelligence for GenAI apps. If you look at metadata intelligence, there are lots of benefits that Informatica's metadata intelligence, the secret sauce of the Informatica platform, provides for customers. And this includes the improved understanding of the business context. How do you match your data against the business glossary, your domain glossary, or how do we identify and mitigate certain quality issues? Or earlier I talked about cleansing. How do we measure it? All those stuff. So bringing that semantic context to the enterprise data, and in addition to that, expanding Informatica's governance capabilities across the system are the ways how you prepare the enterprise metadata for your applications. So when we look at data management for generative AI, the Informatica's point of view is think of it from a data readiness and the data architecture, and then also look at it how it blends with the application architecture. So with that, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand off to my architect to go over a little bit deeper into how we look at enterprise-grade GenAI application architecture, very specifically an agentic framework for RAG development. Ajay?
Hey, thanks, Gopi. I'm Ajay Gollapalli. I'm the Solution Art Director for Informatica. I want to walk you through the conceptual framework for designing systems focusing on RAG development. This combines the retrieval and generation on how Informatica's critical capabilities provide the services aligned to this framework for your enterprise-grade GenAI application. First, with this framework, right, the first thing I want to introduce is the planner agent. The planner agent, the purpose is to transport the user input and make it understandable with Azure OpenAI and based upon what the user is requesting. Once the planner works with Azure OpenAI to get the context and the data, what is the user requesting for, after the decompose, it provides a set of instructions for the next agent. This also provides not only just the understanding, right? So it also provides a security layer, especially with the customers having denial of service attacks or prompt injection. Those kind of things get filtered out by this planner so that nothing of the sort, everything through API governance is being met. It provides the usage governance and along with prompt enhancement for the enterprise data sources. With this, after this planner agent, it hands off to the executor. The executors are the real brain of this operation. The RAG chain executors, they work in cohesiveness with planner agent. They understand the instructions, and the executors can be defined, to say retrieve the enterprise data. Especially users do not have any visibility into what the underlying technical assets are. And it could be from your Fabric data warehouse, or it could be from OneLake, or it could be from a SQL server, or it could be from a vector search like AI search. Wherever they're in your enterprise, it includes like SaaS applications, hybrid, on-prem, you name it. Especially in the cloud, there are lots of places we have the data. And getting this semantic context becomes very important, and the executors work hand in glove with this. They can also use to prioritize which data sets that user is requesting and to based upon the prompt context and based upon also the data quality aspect of it. Especially when data is in raw zone, the curated zone, or the consumption zones, or what you call as the bronze, silver, gold. It doesn't matter which layer it is, depending upon whether the customer wants, whether the user wants a relevant data based upon frequent basis, whether they want to see the raw data or whether they want to see the curated data. Based upon the data quality, they'll be able to retrieve for their consumption purposes, depending upon use cases. The RAG chains also adds arguments with summaries. They enrich the summaries with business context. Especially once you retrieve the data based upon the semantic context, they add value to the data. And these responses can be filtered out based upon data access control. Make sure that the person who's asking for this information is a valid person for this information. And is the valid data for that question. In few words, executors are your no-code pipelines to bring data based upon the user input and aided by the semantic context all through the IDMC cloud application integration. But between the planner and the executor, there is an orchestrator. Like we have a project manager. This executor manages the overall flow. It ensures the smooth interaction between the planner and executor. It handles task scheduling, resource management, feedback incorporation. With this IDMC, Informatica Data Management Cloud, orchestrators are designed and is based on your enterprise metadata, especially in your enterprise from multiple systems of data coming together. Because it's not just a simple rack solution where you can take a database and show the user outputs. Rather, when you're talking about enterprise-grade GenAI application where you have multiple systems coming along together, you want to get the semantic context for your responses. And with this, I'm all putting together, right? So we have this entire blueprint for your consumption where we have the planner, where we have the executors along with the orchestrators to determine what is the user's input, what is the data output for this particular context based upon the metadata intelligence API, and along with the trusted source of high fidelity data coming from your master data management. This entire blueprint is a no-code, low-code kind of an approach. It provides the prompt enhancements and the response enhancements along with the usage governance to ensure the protection that this is necessary for at the user input layer. Now let's take a quick look at the demo itself, right? Let me set the scenario. It's a fictitious company for a person who works in a supply chain management. And this organization is selling some computer hardwares. And we want to see it making sure the data is validated across the multiple systems to gather the user inputs and provide the user context. Let's see this demo. So this is the custom copilot we put across. This custom copilot handles multiple data sets, as I explained earlier, right? So this talks about a transport risk report. It can get data from Salesforce. It gets data from master data management, Informatica's master data management, especially for supplier 360 and product 316. It gets multiple data sets aligned together. Everything goes through the metadata intelligence context. So in this metadata intelligence context, where the data is coming through in the custom copilot, as soon as a person, as an order analyst, when I log on to this application, it knows that as a persona, I would need this what information I would require, and this brings in front of me. But this also brings in front of me because as a persona, I have the data access management layer created. And then with this data access management layer, we can prioritize which data set, what am I supposed to be looking for, what is the information that I'm allowed to see. All this information will come through this custom copilot. If you look at the impacted orders, right? For example, if I look at the impacted orders, this is coming from a Salesforce order management system, which goes through the metadata intelligence context that is coming from through the entire rack chain executor, is bringing this information. And if you see in this demo, for example, this particular component, we all know that NVIDIA is the leading supplier of many chips this year, especially AI ruling the entire industry, and there are huge demand. And we can see that in this, we would like to see who are the different suppliers for this particular component are. We can do either a click through, like the way it provides a prompt enhancements with the copilot, or we can do a natural language processing editing behind with Azure OpenAI in the backend. So for example, we can say, show me alternate suppliers for the component GPU. So the moment you ask for this information, Azure OpenAI, the planner, thinks about what is the NLP behind it, what is the natural language processing behind it. It breaks down the different information, it says suppliers, a different component name, it breaks into context and provides the executors that it requires data from multiple systems. So for example, the master data management system, and then the risk nodes associated with systems, and then brings it into context in this place location for me to make a decision. So when I'm making a decision about what is the data, what am I looking at, and it says like different suppliers, for example, NVIDIA, they are the manufacturer, they can supply much faster to us, and they have a high reliability score of it. And we're going to obviously choose them as our potential supplier. So we can also choose them to say we want to switch the supplier in the order management system, especially the order management system consists of orders, billing, invoices, multiple different systems come into play. And now we are actually interacting with the system directly without going through multiple forms and multiple edits, multiple click-throughs. Instead, we are doing natural language processing with Azure OpenAI, and we can say like switch supplier to NVIDIA. And when we switch the supplier to the alternate supplier, the NVIDIA here, and it automatically, the entire expectation is that the orders, the NLP will be able to understand my intent of changing the supplier within the Salesforce ordering system, and automatically switches the supplier to provide to make the order get fulfilled. Not only that, we can also see, for example, we also saw that there are risks associated with this one. So we can say, like, for example, hey, I would like to understand more about this typhoon or more about this in Cambodia, the earthquake. So I can say, show me the risk node. For example, I can say, show me risk node associated with the typhoon, for example. It automatically brings in the context based upon multiple factors. Now it just goes against one single entity of data that comes from every single day to my enterprise that I need to take a look at it. This is what the entire enterprise grade GenAI application would look like, because you're looking from information from not just the planner, executor, orchestrator methodology, and also you're looking at enterprise high quality data, the high fidelity data coming from MDM that brings a golden record of information. All of those can be made into one single custom copilot for your consumption purposes.
So thanks, Ajay. That was an excellent demo, which actually shows a practical use case of how in an enterprise organization, there is a use case around supply chain management and different personas interacting with a GenAI app. The cool thing about that is also how Ajay was also explaining is behind the scenes. Everybody only looks at the GenAI application, but what goes behind it, how you can collate the different sources of the data, both the enterprise sources, both the other world knowledge, but still it is coming in a governed context to the user so that they have access to the right information with the right governance, and they are able to achieve the right business outcomes. So thanks, Ajay, for explaining that in a very quick and a fast way. But behind the scenes, what Informatica's blueprint does to bring all these information for the GenAI application is pretty impressive. Finally, as part of the demo, you saw how it is working. But one of the other things which, as Informatica, we wanted to take as a next step is around how you can jumpstart this building of this enterprise-grade generative AI applications using Informatica. So we have actually created something which will be very easy, a templatized accelerators we call as recipes, which is available for you. And this will help you as the easy ticket to simplify your whole journey with respect to building the GenAI applications. The solution capabilities that these recipes provide are around the app integration, the API integration, the Azure OpenAI connectors that you actually need. In addition to that, our platform is also built, is AI powered, so that provides all the metadata intelligence that you need. And with these pre-built recipes, you do have an ability to start faster, jumpstart your journey, and also achieve all the business outcomes that you need. Finally, thanks for your time in listening to this very quick presentation. If you wanted to know more about it, do come meet us at Ignite, come to our virtual page if you're not attending Ignite. There are also more, there's a plethora of demos which we have where we talk about how Informatica enables Microsoft Azure customers with respect to Fabric, with respect to Azure OpenAI, how do we bring Azure serverless and things like that. And in addition to that, we also have a very cool thing, which is you can actually play a GenAI game and win some exciting prizes at Ignite. Finally, if you're not attending Ignite or if you wanted to still talk to us, You can also reach out to us at info4microsoft@informatica.com, email us, or come to the Ignite page. Thanks for your time. Appreciate everything, and looking forward for deeper conversations. Thank you.